So welcome back here to Sports Stars Football. I'm Darren Kelly, joined by Niamh Kendall. We feature two matches every week on the show in particular, but we'll quickly run through the others before we finish. Niamh, I don't think there was ever any doubt after what we witnessed in Newbridge last Sunday that this was the game we were going to pick first.
100%, Darren. Yeah, before we left, we parted ways on Sunday evening. We said this would definitely be the game because, it is, I suppose that the shock result of Longford's win over Kildare has left this game being a really, really important game. And as anyone that listens to us have realised that we had Kildare in the, top in the group. We had Kildare, as I particularly had them as All-Ireland champions. So this game, it's against the big two. I suppose the two, as I said, the two teams we would expect to top the group, being 1 and 2, are now head to head, and it's whoever wins it is basically fighting for survival.
Yeah, because we're talking about the Division 3 league champions who beat Kildare on the way to winning that title against a Kildare team that we both picked them to go to Croke Park. Granted, I might have sided with Clare to win it, but we both expect them to go to Croke Park. But after what we witnessed last week and the poor performance outside 3 or 4 players of Kildare, and then the stories we're hearing afterwards about club matches and this, that, and the other, and only a 7-day turnaround against a team that have already beaten them this year away. It's in Kiltoom at 2:00 on Sunday. Kildare are fighting for their lives here.
They really are, Darren. And as you said, in that league game, that league semi-final, Kildare scored 116, Roscommon 4-9, conceded 4 goals against them, conceded 3 goals last week in that important match against Longford. So, they really are fighting for survival. You would worry at the fact, I suppose, as we said in the third half, we realised after we did comments, we look back at the game, we realised how tired and lethargic Kildare looked. We've since found out there was obviously club games that they played at the weekend, and they've really gone 7-8 weeks in the trot there of games every weekend. So that'll certainly have to take its toll. Now we're going into week 9 of their, week 9 of games for them. And you just wonder, obviously Roscommon had no game last weekend, so they would have had a chance to obviously sit and watch that game, have a chance for the management to work on a game plan. And you just really worry for Kildare going into this game, Darren.
Yeah, the one thing that saved them here is that Roscommon's form hasn't been great since they won that league either. They've played 4 games in college and only won 1 of them. They were beaten by Leitrim twice. And the team they beat was what's proven to be a very poor Sligo team, which we'll get to later on as well. And Roscommon have also gone doing this crazy thing of having their county players playing league matches. But at least they did that with a week off the following week. It's still wrong in my opinion, but at least they've had a week off to keep themselves fresh and all that. And I know for a fact, because I live in the county, they're very, very difficult to beat in Kiltoom.
Yeah, that's the other key thing. Not only Kildare, Longford got that result over Kildare in their back garden, effectively, in Newbridge. And now they have to go the journey and travel to Roscommon, to travel to that, to the, as you said, a real haven for Roscommon, that they'd be really difficult to beat there with the home crowd and everything. And with massive pressure on them, Darren. And I mean, Sean Finnegan, we talked before the game last Saturday and even during last week, Sean Finnegan is a manager that, and Deanna O'Hora has a manager that, Sean in particular, obviously won an All-Ireland with Westmeath and knows how to come the hard route and stuff. He certainly has his work cut out now to try and get the team, I suppose, back into, get over basically trying to park last Sunday's result and try and get them ready, sort of 6 days to get them ready for a Roscommon team that, both teams, this is effectively like an All-Ireland final, Darren, because it's so much at stake in this game.
Yeah, last year Kildare beat Roscommon 111-17 in the opening round of the championship, and there was another group of Dead Leash who were in it on that occasion. That mightn't be enough, because Kildare have lost to Longford by 6 points. So if they don't match that or beat it, they can't guarantee survival of the championship. They'll be out of their own hands unless they pick up a big result with a margin arguably double what they achieved last year.
Yeah, that's the thing too. That's the added pressure, Darren, because if they're going to get a result, okay, that's pressure enough. But then they have to have in the back of their minds. And I suppose I would feel like Sean Finnegan's shrewd enough man. He's not going to go out and start telling them that, but that'll have to be in the back of their minds to go right. And yourself, Darren, when you're trying to, if you go into the game with thoughts of going right, we have to get goals, we have to get a big score up here, you might the actual the easy part of actually getting, not the easy part, but you might nearly forget to win the match. Nearly, we got obsessed with the score and watching the scoreboard. You'll nearly get caught out the other way then, and maybe not play at all. So they'll have to try and first and foremost get a performance, and then I suppose and hope that they can get enough scores then, and obviously not concede goals, which is something that they've done in the past, and be try and keep a clean sheet in that front.
Yeah, and we'll get to goals in potential matchups in a moment, because like Aisling Hanley's hat-trick that day is what stands out. But Roscommon as well, I mentioned their form isn't great, but they're well capable of scoring goals. We've seen that. They have experience there in the likes of Jenny Higgins, or Shine as she goes by now. And they're also bringing back a world champion boxer for this match. She's back training. Yeah. I've seen the pictures.
Saw the picture myself, Darren. Yeah, and I mean, as you said, she was even like she was on the Late Late Show the other night as well, and she was interviewed too, and she mentioned the great love of team sports and the love of the LGFA too, which was brilliant to hear. But yeah, she has, as you said, when you spoke about after her gold medal, her first thoughts, or maybe not her first thoughts, but certainly her thoughts was to this match, this Kildare match. So she had it earmarked in her diary from early on. So I mean, imagine that boost, whether she starts or not, but that boost to have on the line, is a serious boost for Roscommon, and another sort of feather in their cap too of a backup plan for them.
From what you saw in Newbridge last Sunday, regards Kildare first before we zone in Roscommon, what do they need to do? They were leaving gaps down the middle, and if they do that against Roscommon, they're going to be in trouble. We talked about the goal threat. That's what cost them arguably, but cost them a league final place anyway, if it cost them a league title or not. They seem to bounce back with a good run through Leinster, 5 wins out of 5. And, we can't ignore the fact that they probably went into the game against Longford complacent.
Yeah, I think that is the thing, and maybe the other match we're previewing as well, maybe they got caught as well a little bit. I mean, as in Leitrim got caught a wee bit against Wicklow. We'll be talking about that later on. But yeah, there's certainly, they have to have been thinking that, Longford obviously had a poor enough Leinster campaign, and obviously, they were Leinster champions, and they'll have to be looking at the fact that they were going in again. The home venue as well, I think is I think teams look at that as worth a couple of points to them, having in their back garden as well. But in fairness, as I said in the commentary, Darren, and we both spoke about it, Longford a full value for the one. They had a game plan, they implemented it brilliantly. Kildare had no answers, and I think that was probably more worrying for Sean Finnegan and for the players, because they couldn't seem to pull themselves out of the fire. Like, I mean, okay, they got the goal again after half time to bring it back a little bit, but when Longford hit back at them, they still had no answers, and that's the worrying thing. And I suppose they looked at Grace Clifford on so many occasions. She only scored 2 points from play, but she was really well marshalled and really well marked by Raid Victory, or Raid Reynolds actually, I think, was picking her up. And then they had no answers. Even Nessa Dooley hardly didn't score at all, which is unusual to see a player of her caliber not score at all. So that's the worrying thing, when Longford did a job on those few players, the other Kildare players didn't step up, and that's the worry. If Roscommon look at that game and look at, okay, let's pick out the key players to mark, they've no answers to that. And I think that was probably the most worrying thing for me looking at them.
Did they get it wrong on the line with Kildare? Because if you look at the stats of the game against Roscommon, their top 2 scorers were Lauren Murta and Orla Sullivan. Now, I don't know if they were Carrie Knox coming into the game, but they still came off the bench against Longford. Like, should they have started? Granted, Gillian Wheeler did score a goal in the player that was named. But there were 2 big names to leave off and gamble on. Yeah,
that is the thing. And again, obviously, as you said, Orla and Lauren were named to start, and obviously there were late changes. The 2 girls came in, Gillian and Fiona Trout came in instead. I know, like, obviously Fiona Trout was playing in front of us, Darren, as a half back, and she, a couple of early mistakes from her, and she seemed a little bit nervous maybe getting started. But when you look at it, like, maybe Sean Finnegan was thinking, oh, here, this is against a supposed weaker of the 3 teams we're playing, of the 2 teams in our group. We'll try a few new players in and test them out against the thing. And maybe it was a little too late. I'm not saying it was they end up losing the game, but you certainly feel that changing a winning group like that maybe was the wrong decision.
Yeah, it proved costly in the end, but look at the end of the day, we can't take away from Longford's performance either, and they were good for the win. The current Sports Stats football rankings have Longford up to 20th, Roscommon 19th, and Kildare 18th. Looking at Roscommon, you win a trophy this year, things don't seem to go well afterwards because Roscommon have really struggled. But I was at the Connacht final against Leitrim, and they kicked away an awful lot of chances in the first half. They seemed to have a plan to bring the ball into the scoring area, but just the scoring radar was off on the day. They struggled to create goal scoring opportunities, but they had, I think it was 10 different scores in the match or something like that. So there's something for Ollie Lennon to work on here if he can just keep the confidence of the players up.
Yeah, that's so true, Darren. I suppose as you just said it there, obviously Division 3 champions, and then maybe again a little touch of complacency going into that Connacht game. They didn't have the Connacht final didn't have a good Connacht campaign, as you said, lost 3 and only won the 1 game, and then obviously enough said about that, but obviously they still ended up in the Connacht final. And maybe when
I'm going to talk about Clare there by any chance, will you?
No, I wouldn't do that, Darren. I wouldn't bring that up again. But so they ended up, I suppose, maybe obviously in the Connacht final by default, we'll call it, but at the same time would have expected to get one over Leitrim, I would feel, and maybe a little bit complacent going into that game. I suppose they'll know what they're up against in this game. They'll know what's at stake, but equally they'll know the caliber of Kildare, the Kildare team, the potential Kildare team that can play. So they'll have to be on. I feel that when Roscommon come up against a bigger team, it's then that they can pull out the big guns and they can step up then. And I suppose that the key thing is, as you mentioned, Jenny Higgins, but Aisling Hanley is a key player for them there, Darren. She can get enough ball into her, she can really cause damage.
Let's go to Aisling Hanley first. Of course, still a minor, but she did score 3 goals that day. Now, Leitrim managed to stay on top of her in the Connacht final. Based on what I saw myself from Leisha Lennon, and I'm sure Kildare have a plan for Aisling Hanley. Outside of that, though, you have likes of Natalie McHugh, Michaela McHugh, and Jenny Higgins, potentially on the half-forward line. Jenny will flow too. Roisin Lennon brings experience in that attack. Fiona Tully as well. Like, Roscommon have loads of options, and Kildare can't have any of their defenders switching off in this match.
No, definitely can't, Darren. And I mean, that's what we saw them doing at times last week against Longford. They did switch off, and as you said, Longford was able to cut through them. And I mean, that's the thing. If Roscommon have those Roscommon forwards you just mentioned have the potential to get scores and cause the upset that Longford caused last week. Those players are able to carry at pace. And I mean, Kildare seemed to struggle with that last week. And I mean, again, as I said, Ollie Lennon, in watching that game last week, he will certainly look and know that, you'd feel that if you run at the Kildare defence, you can get scores.
Yeah, and we don't know if Lisa O'Rourke's going to start this game or not. I think she was used as an impact sub any time she's played this year so far. She did score a goal against Down, so she's well capable of doing that damage as well. I feel myself too, as dangerous as Aisling Hanley is, and if Aisling Hanley's given ball, she's going to beat Kildare on her own. But Kildare have to find a way of dealing with Jennifer Higgins and Natalie McHugh, especially if they play that kind of roaming wing forwards like the last day, supporting the midfield as well. The players that have run and all that. But I mean, Jennifer Higgins is a very, very difficult player to deal with. She has the experience. She knows how to distribute ball. She knows how to create opportunities as well. And if she's allowed freedom, she will find the right players to do damage. Yeah,
she is. And I mean, she is really their keeping. We talk about the influence Caroline O'Hannon has with Armagh. Jenny Higgins can have that potential for Roscommon. She really is, obviously her experience tells us and I think there's her and another couple of players, have played their 100th match for Roscommon there last week, or there in the last couple of weeks. So, the experience is really there. Laura Fleming's one of them, and Natalie McHugh as well, I think. So that the experience is there, and that's the thing. I mean, if you take Jenny Higgins out of that half-forward position, Darren, and play the role that she plays, that floating role, and popping up for kick-outs or where she needed, it's leaving that more space, which Kildare, we saw Kildare having loads of Kildare struggling with the space that their defenders had in front of them. So if you have Jenny Higgins, and if it's probably Lauren Murtha's going to start the next day, Darren, Lauren Murtha picking up Jenny Higgins, that's that's a defender being pulled away, and it's leaving more space for the Roscommon forward. So, that's again a worry. And I suppose something I saw Kildare didn't do last week. They didn't play a sweeper role. You could maybe some teams play it too much, but maybe that's something they're going to have to look at potentially someone just playing back, and particularly in front of Ashton Hanley.
Yeah, well, I think especially at the start of the game, or to get the wind against them, they'll have to look at that to go out to supply and get a feel for the contest. Grace Clifford was one of the shining lights out of Kildare. She worked her socks off and tried to inspire her team around. Like as always, the midfield battle. Laura Fleming's been flying it this year for Roscommon as well. Of course, I'm leaving out Caroline Conway and Hazel McLaughlin. That's if they're the four players that are in there. Like, do you imagine Grace Clifford and Laura Fleming will be around each other, or will it be left for the other people to pick up the other team's danger person?
Yeah, I think again, I think it's always a shame if two players like of the caliber of Laura and Grace end up marking each other. I think it ends up taking away from what the positive job they can do for their various counties.
Great battle, though.
It'd be a brilliant battle, but I think they'd end up cancelling each other out, Darren, and it'd do no good for either teams. Like, and I mean, they both have very similar roles, similar effects for their teams. As we said, Grace, is definitely their go-to player, and as their captain as well. They looked up to her occasions last week, but again, as I said, she didn't probably get the support she needed. She was playing midfield, only just got the 2 points, and I shouldn't be saying only got 2 points. Like, there's not, there's a lot of midfielders who'd be delighted to get 2 points, but I suppose you expect so much more from Grace. But she didn't get the space or that opportunity to get a run on the game last week. And in them 2 points, one with her right and one with her left. Equally, Laura Fleming, she obviously takes the frees as well, can take the frees as well for Roscommon. But, she's that player, that go-to player, again, is their captain as well. And, I just think it'd be an awful shame if either players end up in each other, because I think it would end up cancelling each other out, and it would be it'd be to no benefit for their teams.
I imagine they'll stay away from each other if they're let anyway. As important as the Aisling Hanley Leisha Linehan battle is, or Jennifer Higgins against Lauren Murta, for me, what could be the key one is Niamh Feeney against Aoife Rattigan. Aoife Rattigan got 3 points for Kildare last week against Longford. She's a danger person. We know Nessa Dooley can play much better than she played the last day. We know Lara Kern can get more involved than she did the last day too. And Rachel Fitzmaurice will have to be very alert, because she probably has no idea who's going to be down on her. Will it be Gillian Wheeler? Will it be Orla Sullivan? Will it be one of the other two players as well? But Aoife Rattigan, you'd imagine, is going to be hanging around the 40. Kira Wheeler will be as well. But Niamh Feeney is the central of this Roscommon team. If they're going to have a run this year, she's going to have to dictate the traffic, and that's a big test for her first day out.
It really is, Darren. And I suppose, we mentioned on the third half, like obviously player of the month for April and player of the match in the final against Wexford, and she was on the team of the league. So she's certainly rolling out the honours of individual or of her awards this year already. But this is the big game for them. This is I suppose the key game. This is, as I said, this is their potential All-Ireland final for them for this weekend, because they have to hit the ground running. They'll know that they're going to come up with a massive challenge from Kildare, and obviously Kildare being hurting from last week. But that is a key area, as you said. Aoife was tried to start the fight for Kildare at times last week, but I suppose again it was at times there wasn't the support there. So I suppose Niamh Feeney will have to do her first and foremost as a defender, her job of marking for Rattigan, but equally is that forward-minded player is the centre of the defence for Roscommon, and she's the one that can really read the game for them and set up the attacks.
She can indeed. Here it's all down to this game, Roscommon against Kildare, and you'll be important regardless. But it's quite simple. If Kildare lose, they're out of the championship. If they draw, they're hoping for a miracle beyond miracles. If Kildare win by 7 points or more, they're guaranteed into the quarterfinals, and Roscommon will be up against Longford. Niamh Kendlin, what's going to happen in St. Bridget's, Kiltoom on Sunday at 2:00?
Yeah, this is a very good question. I wish I had my crystal ball, Darren, to tell you how it was going to go. But yeah, the more I've looked at, as I said, these kind of games, it's so hard to tell, because obviously seeing Kildare live last week, and you feel there's more in them, and you feel that when it comes to the bit, that they will you feel that they could get the results, and then you look at Roscommon when their backs at the wall, they can pull out the result. But probably we want an answer, and I'm going to give you. I think Kildare is going to win it, but I don't think they're going to win it by the margin they want. I think it's not going to be. I think it's going to be closer than we think. I think they'll win it, but only by 2 or 3 points.
2 or 3 points. Kildare will be biting fingernails for a week. I know I picked them to be in Croke Park too, but after what I saw last week, Roscommon need a performance as much as Kildare. If this game was in Kildare, I'd probably go with them, but I'm actually going to pick Roscommon. I just think it's last week was damaging for Kildare, and I don't think 7 days is enough to recover from it. One thing before I leave it though, would be an awful sickener for Diana O'Hora of Roscommon and put her new team out of the championship.
Well,
and we like
you
that
know,
in here now.
yeah. Well, definitely. I mean, I suppose when we talked about that league game, that league semi-final, Darren, or was it the earlier game? No, it was the league semi-final. When we talked about the fact that, you know, I suppose that wasn't, Kildare were hot favourites to win that game, and we didn't. So we did say that maybe was a Diana O'Hora factor in it. So, or sorry, Kildare. Yeah, Kildare were hot favourites to win it, and Roscommon beat them. So.
There's lots of things. There's lots of things to play for there. I'd say both teams would just be happy that I'm not going to be at it, because last time I saw anything playing, there were 4 days out. Roscommon against Kildare, it is the big game of the weekend. It's, as Niamh mentioned, it's pretty much a knockout match. The odds are against both teams qualifying for the quarterfinals, and whoever doesn't come away with a victory is going to have a mountain to climb. In Kildare's case, they will be out of the championship. We'll take a break. When we come back, let's take our second game. Wicklow against Wexford. Another big result last week in Group A. This is the 4-team group. And then we'll have a look at the other matches and what we could end up having by Sunday evening.